Peace, what's good, y'all? My name is Hawaii Mike, Chef for Hire, and welcome to the Miseducation of Mary Jane. So if you like what we're doing here, make sure y'all subscribe, make sure y'all comment, like, share it out. Let's get this popping. And just a quick disclaimer. This is a conversation. This is an open dialogue. This series is not meant to be the end-all, be-all, and everybody's 100% right. We are still learning about this plant. We are in very early stages. Haven't been able to do a lot of research on this plant, and it's restrictive. So to go back to our first episode, this is really about us finding our personal journey, embracing our personal relationship with this plant by understanding how it affects us each as unique individuals. So again, join in on the conversation, share, hit us in the comments, talk. Let's figure this out. And trust, this next episode we're about to do, this isn't going to be the only time we talk about this topic, because today we are talking about one of the biggest myths in this industry around this plant, and just honestly what we really have known as our truth and what this plant does. So again, it's going to be, people are going to push back, but if you know me, right? This is a topic I've talked about a lot. If y'all been at a bud tender training, I talk about this. If you're a store owner, I've talked about it. If you're another brand, I constantly talk about this, because to me, this is when I call this the placebo, right? This is our placebo times ego, right? Our ego is telling us, nah, this is what I know. Not everybody says it, so it has to be true. Nah, it's how it's labeled. It's everything. And then the placebo is, if we believe it, that's a lot of the times how we'll be affected. But this is the elephant in the room. This is the one nobody wants to talk about because it'll be too difficult, because everybody believes it already. This myth has shaped so much of the culture, of the industry, and just our understanding of this plant overall. So let's just get to it. The myth is indica and sativa are terms that describe effects. Indica makes you sleepy in the couch. Sativa lifts you up, and hybrid is somewhere in the middle. We all grew up hearing that. Our peers say it every day. Like I said, brands use it in their marketing. Dispensaries organize their whole shelves around it. And here's the truth. They're just botanical terms, not effect-based, agricultural. They describe how the plant grows, not how you feel, period. It's just not true, but it's easy. And it was, again, we thought it was based on effects. And for a long time, that's what we truly believed from land races, right? When everything was indica or sativa, and just those land races, it wasn't a lot of strains. But as things started to become hybridized, and we'll get into that a little bit later, it started to become more apparent it couldn't be effect-based. How could it? Because now we're adding something in the middle of that, because everything's been hybridized. So how do you even balance that? Make the math work. Really, again, placebo. Remove your ego, remove all your past thoughts, and step into this with just a fresh, clear, open mind. So the myth came from, actually, kind of, I guess, a good place. We weren't there, so I don't know. But in 1753, Carl Linnaeus published Species Plantarum, classifying all cannabis plants under one group. Now remember, I think it was right around this time, actually no, a little bit later, about 100 years later, cannabis was actually in the pharmacopoeia here in the US. So these are all kind of things as we're learning about this plant leading up. And, these were times, again, these are just simple classifications, so we could put these into books and share with, through medicinal practices, and just have information around this, because, again, this is a healing plant, so it is used for medicine. So it was called Cannabis sativa L. Cannabis is the genus, sativa as a species, and L indicating Linnaeus, a system. So sativa comes from a Latin word, sativum, meaning cultivated. Then later, what's this dude's name? A French biologist, Jean-Baptiste Lamarck, updated the naming in 1785 with two distinct species, Cannabis sativa, a taller, lankier, and more fibrous plant, and Cannabis indica, a shorter, stouter, or more psychoactive plant. But if you actually look it up, I think it only states, Cannabis hemp, Cannabis ruderalis, and Cannabis sativa as the different types, right? So even indica was supposed to be under sativa as a different kind of offspring, right? So they're not supposed to be completely two different, but again, that's where the shit kind of gets confusing. There is no governing body who knows this exact science because these are plants. And I also believe that this is probably one of the more unique plants on this planet because of our physical relationship with it via the endocannabinoid system. So, you know, cannabis indica is a shorter, stouter, and more psychoactive plant. So supposedly it's stronger, right, was their findings. But its name, what does indica mean? Indica just means from India. So the first place they found this plant was most likely in India. Hence, Hindu, Kush Mountains, all these names come from that, right? And so that's what they thought it was supposed to originate. Sativa, sativus, and sativum are all Latin botanical adjectives meaning cultivated, just associated botanically with plants that promote good health and used to designate certain seed-grown domestic crops, right? And so, you know, we look up, and this is again, so this information, I'm gonna have references, there's different websites, there's different studies, there's all kinds of different things that have shown and talked about this. On everybody's favorite website has it. Whether you're a Leafly fan, whether you are a, wherever, you know, weed.com, whatever, wherever you go to get your information, like they have posted about indica sativa talking about the effects, and it's just not true. Sativa is always said to be energizing. Originally grew in warm, humid climates, longer, airier, lanky, so they can dry out and not absorb much humidity, right? So that's why they're a little bit more, wouldn't say like, I guess lanky is the word that they kind of use, but more fibrous, more open, not as dense, looser, lighter buds, right? They also take a longer time to grow or produce because the weather won't get cold and force it into indicas, typically said to be in the couch, you know, relaxing. Originally grew in colder northern climates, shorter and dense because of their environment, and their growth cycle is shorter so they can get harvested before the cold and wet of fall and winter set in. So these words are used all over the plant kingdom. It's not just cannabis, all right? So, all right, I'm gonna pause here just read y'all off a few. And this is just from a Wikipedia, and this is just on sativa, right? So, Allium sativum, garlic. Avena sativa, the common oat. Castanea sativa, a sweet chestnut. Coriandrum sativum, cilantro. Crocus sativus, the saffron crocus. Cucumis sativus, the cucumber. Daucus carota, the carrot. Iruca sativa, rocket or arugula, a leaf vegetable. Hordeum sativum, barley, right? I would also say hops, barley and hops are probably right in there because they say cannabis and hops are cousins, right? Lactus sativa, lettuce. Medea sativa, Chilean tarweed. Pastinaca sativa, a parsnip. So y'all kind of get the picture, right? Oriza sativa is rice. Longer grain rice are indicas like japonica and, why can't I think right now? Jasmine, right? Those are indica rices. Do you ever get high off of rice? Like, no, we don't. So, you know, it's how do we get past, you know, this idea when, you know, this information is there, right? And like I just said, it's agriculture, you know, to label these to describe structure, not the effects, right? It may be effects on like, oh, these are healthier for you, or they may have some benefits as herbs, and that's why it's classified in the sativum or sativa, you know, space. But it's one of these things where it's like, you know, none of these names tell you anything about how the foods are going to make you feel. They just describe how the plants grow, and cannabis is no different. So the industry just continues to promote this again, like it's a personality test, right? Like this one is for sleep. This one is for creativity. This one is for this mood. This one's for being in the couch. Like it's all marketing. It's not science. And that's why I call it the placebo, right? Because if we believe it, if we truly believe something in our minds, right? It's how we're going to feel. The saying, where focus goes, energy flows, literally creates our realities. That's how powerful our minds are. Even when people get anxiety with cannabis or things of that nature, it's not the cannabis is giving you anxiety, it's you already have something inside that is giving you anxiety. The cannabis kind of just wakes it up and says, hey, this is something you got to deal with. Say hi. But we're resistant to it. We get scared. We blame it on the plant. That's not like, we need to allow this plant and build this relationship where it's so individual to us. We're listening to it. We're not necessarily just following it blindly, but we're working with it. We're experimenting with it. We're challenging the status quo and figuring out like how this really works for me. And even if Indica and Sativa were effect-based, it still wouldn't matter today. You know why? Because nearly every strain in the market is a hybrid. Show me a strain right now that's not a hybrid, right? So even if that was the case, how does the math help me with that? Like, I'll wait. Think about it. If everything's a hybrid, so you're gonna say, but it's indica leaning or sativa leaning, right? I've had people literally tell me they could tell the difference in the percentages. But if you can, why can't the testing labs? You send flower to a testing lab, you're gonna get different results. I mean, the same flower to 5 different testing labs, you'll get different results. They've done that already, multiple times, right? So decades of crossbreedings has mixed genetics so deeply, you can't point to a flower and say, this one is pure indica, this one is pure sativa, right? So here, this is from weed.com. Today, nearly every strain is a hybrid genetically. Extensive crossbreeding over 40 plus years means true landrace indica strains are extremely rare. Again, show me a landrace strain you've been smoking, right? True sativa strains are nearly extinct, meaning like what was the guys from Amsterdam, right? They had the TV show. They're pheno hunting. They're looking for land races, searching for them, right? In order to get to the root of this healing plant and all of its healing and medicinal properties so that they can figure out how to start from, not necessarily ground zero, but start from a purer form again and create a library of phenos and phenotypes and different kinds of strains that are not necessarily basic, but they're the foundational genetics of everything that's been so hybridized at this point. So it's important to kind of go back and get there because we've gotten so far from it. So to even still rely on those terms in that way, to me, it seems so far-fetched. It's just old thinking, it's old programming, right? So most indicas and sativas share significant genetic overlap. Chemical profiles vary widely even within the same label. Modern lab testing shows that appearance does not reliably predict effects. 2 strains labeled sativa may have completely opposite terpene and cannabinoid profiles, which means opposite effects. So wait, is that saying that a sativa could make me quote unquote sleepy or an indica could make me energized? So, again, indica and sativa don't indicate effects. But unfortunately, these terms have been so ingrained, not just in the industry, but in the culture as effects, that consumers will often ask product packaging that will advertise a strain as indica sativa, even though the terms don't necessarily have anything to do with the effects a consumer may experience. They're still gonna say that's what it's for. So I can put references, y'all, whatever y'all need, where I got all of this stuff from, all online. We can all find all this everywhere. It's easily accessible. A 2022 study analyzed roughly 90,000 samples from legal markets across 6 states, found that terms like indica, hybrid, and sativa are really unreliable indicator of effects. The samples, though, fell into 3 distinct groups, one with high amounts of caryophyllene and limonene, we're talking terpenes here, one with high amounts of myrcene and pinene, and a third group with a high amount of terpene and myrcene. Ultimately, though, these groups didn't correspond with the previous categories of indica, sativa, or hybrid. So those groups of effects are based more on what? Terpenes. Again, we're not going to go deep into this right now because we're sticking to indica and sativa. We'll stay on track. Then these findings were echoed by another study published a year earlier by Sean Miles, an associate professor of agriculture at Nova Scotia's Dalhousie University, who analyzed 300 cannabis strains. He concluded there's certainly no scientific evidence that there's any consistent difference between samples with the labels of indica and sativa. It's all kind of nebulous. meaning unclear. It's not clear. So if it's not clear, why are we sticking to it? Why do we believe this so strong, and why can't we let this go? Well, previously, we didn't have a lot of studies. Also, again, it just became the norm. It's the culture. For years, we've been hearing this, and people just thought that's what it is. Like, I remember hearing it as a kid, but again, as a kid, when you have, land races around, it's like, yeah, maybe that's what makes sense, but also we didn't have any of the research from Dr. Meshulam or any of this new stuff that's coming out, right? And so once we were able to start testing, what did we find? What gives the most effects that we believe right now? It's the same as essential oils. I give you all a hint. Terpenes, plus the entourage effect of cannabinoids, minor cannabinoids, and even your mood, your diet, your environment, right? Set and setting have more to do with it. And again, we're going to tap into all of that later, but let's stay very right here. Indica and sativa have zero consistent correlation with effects. Okay? That's to say, yeah, you might be able to say, oh yeah, this sativa made me energized. 100%. Sometimes it doesn't. But it's not, again, it's zero consistent. And if it's not consistent, usually that's going to go down the path of we can't prove it then, right? So I've had so many people tell me, oh, I can't smoke haze. I get fucked up. It's too strong, right? That's a sativa. Hazes are heavy sativas. Some people get sedated from hazes. And then even the part of that, that's a low THC plant as well. So why do people get smacked off of a haze? But again, I'm not going to digress from this one. So here, this is from Abstract's text also. There's no scientific evidence supporting the idea that indica and sativa produce reliably different effects. So if so many different studies and websites have this information, there's all these different published stories about this, question becomes, if we know it's false, why are we still selling it as the truth? Keyword, selling it. It's because we're in an industry that keeps perpetuating this. Why? It's familiar, it's easy, and it sells products, and it keeps the customer ignorant. Or not even ignorant, really, it gives them a false education because we're spewing things that aren't true, and then they're standing on it, and then that keeps compounding and compounding and compounding. This is where my two favorite terms come from. Willful ignorance, because we know the truth. You know how many people I've spoke to about this, and they're just like, yeah, but that's just what the customer knows. Cognitive dissonance. I'm just gonna, that's just what the industry does, do it. I'm just gonna go and play, I'll just go along with it. Ease is not accurate. Sales are not healing. And familiarity is not education. This plan is for healing, and all it wants is homeostasis. It just wants balance. It just wants us to learn how to be our best selves. And this is part of the way of doing that. This is part of the way of healing for a lot of people. It's wellness, it's spiritual, it's a natural connection. In my heart, I can't continue, I don't, right? I can't just condone, I'm a passionate person. And if I believe in something, I'm gonna go dig deep into it. I'm gonna do my research. I'm gonna try to figure out as much as I can. And I have not seen anything lately. Again, I'm open. This is an open dialogue. You guys got information that proves this different, that says otherwise? Yo, let's go. Let's open up the dialogue, because this is about learning. I'm not saying like I'm the expert and I'm 100% right, and there's always another angle. There's always something else to look at. So please, if you have information, but please back it up. Don't let it just be, oh, from my experience or anything of that nature, because then it's just ego, right? Let's get past ego. This isn't about me personally. This is about how do we be better as human beings, because if we're so caught up in this and believing that these are the effects and it works for people, that's our minds. Wouldn't you want to give that power of the person their mind and understand that that's where the true power is? Because that means they can change how they feel. That means they can change their realities, right? Wouldn't you want to be able to do that? Because you're doing that already by believing these myths. So you have that power, right? And I don't want to teach misinformation just because it's easier. Again, that's willful ignorance. If we know better, we must do better. We owe it to ourselves. we owe it to the culture, we owe it to our clients, the customers, and everyone that consumes this plant so they can be better educated. So what does determine effects? Well, here's the truth, and this is where science does matter, but that will actually come in the next episode. So we'll talk about that later. I don't want to, again, I want to stay focused here. Instead, how should we approach cannabis? Well, I believe we need a new language, right? Or at least new words to be able to convey this messaging and a new story to tell. Or how do we share this information so they create their own story, their own relationship? But just a more accurate, more educational system, one that shines the light, to me, on this being an individual journey. This is my journey, and it's unique to me and you as the individual. It is a private conversation between the plant, your mind, and your body. Again, that's the goal. That is the whole essence of why we're doing this series. That's why I'm putting this out there and talking about it from this perspective and talking about and starting with this being a personal journey, because that's what I truly believe it is. Just like life, we are the lead actors in our own movies. Everybody else just plays a supporting role. I'll say this again. We are 99.999% energy, 0.001% matter. But that matter is the physical, right? That is the physical manifestation of that energy, where we put that energy in focus. I truly believe the matrix isn't digital. The matrix comes from our mind. The matrix is using that energy to create the matter. So could you really create your world? And that's what I believe we can do, right? So we can manifest our experiences. We can put that energy out there. The universe does its work. So we have to figure out, again, how to create this personal relationship with self and the things like these organic technologies, these plants that help us to get centered, to heal, to feel better emotionally, mentally, physically, spiritually. So again, that's why we're here. And in closing, we believe the myth because it's all we had. So this isn't also saying everybody's dumb and please, it is not that. I am just very passionate about this. If ever I come across as condescending or negative or whatever, it is not my intention. I'm here to open dialogue. Trust. That's all this is about. Again, though, we believe this. So this isn't an easy thing to unwind. This has been the truth. This has been the foundation. This has been the core of what we believe for effects. That being said, wouldn't you rather know the truth? Wouldn't you rather share the truth? Especially if this changes how we look at everything and associate with this plant, how we talk about this plant. My whole goal, again, all we need to know is as much truth as we can, and then we do with it what we want. And if you want to continue to still placebo yourself and do that, that's fine. But if we can start shifting this industry and everything else to truth and still do marketing and still do everything, why can't it's the same shit? Again, is what people are not going to want to change their packaging, or we're not going to know how to categorize the flowers. We can learn how to do that. We learned how to do it this way, so we can just learn something else. But what if we do it in real time and share that information with everybody as we're learning in this industry, as this industry is growing? So I think, again, we have a responsibility because we know the truth. And there's too many of y'all I've had this conversation with, and there's too many out there that I know this as truth. And still, it's talked about, you know what I'm saying? Like, we know this isn't effect-based, but still people will talk about it just because, like I said, it's easier. But we have a responsibility to be honest, to be true, to educate. Because, again, don't talk about education if you're educating people with misinformation. I don't believe that's education. Like, you're arming people to be wrong, or you're arming people to just follow your company, your brand, and those half-truths. So again, Indica and Sativa are agricultural terms, not effects. They don't predict your experience. You actually do, which is funny because that skews it, right? And if this plant is truly here to heal us, and we respect it, we can't keep lying for convenience. We can't keep teaching shortcuts, and we can't let marketing replace the truth, period. This has been the Miseducation of Mary Jane, breaking down the myth of Indica and Sativa. The unlearning starts here. If you like what we're doing, make sure you hit that subscribe button, share, comment, and let's keep this dialogue going, y'all. Again, this is supposed to be open, engaging, fun, interesting. Let's keep moving this forward. And I know, like I said before, this won't be the last conversation on this. So if other people have things to say, let's talk about it. We'll find some forums and maybe create another episode where we have a few guests on and do it that way. Appreciate y'all for watching. Love y'all, and I'll see y'all soon. Peace.